Hi, I'm Sybil Wilkes from the Joyner Morning Show here on BlackAmericaWeb.com. And we were stunned and saddened to hear of another murder of another young black teenager, a young man by the name of Jordan Edwards. And it happened here in the suburb of Dallas. It's called Balch Springs. And with us today, it is the attorney for the family of Jordan, and this is Mr. Lee Merritt. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I am so sorry about this, and obviously, this is a situation which nobody prepares for, obviously. But what can you tell us? This was a situation in which the young man and his brother and others were at a party on Saturday night.
Yeah, the young man with several members of his football team, accompanied by his older brother, went to a high school party. Young kids, several dozen kids in the house. It got too loud, and someone called in a nuisance complaint, a noise complaint. The kids heard that the police were coming, and they decided it was time to go home about 11 o'clock. And so the crowd began to disperse, and Jordan, with his four companions, got into the car that they came in. And as they started to back up, they heard someone shouting profanity at them and flashing a flashlight. And they started to move the car forward to go. And that person fired at them 3 shots into the car, shattering the passenger side window. They didn't realize that Jordan had been hit, but they took off at that point. Half a block down the road, they realized that his brother, who was driving the car, realized that his brother had been hit, pulled the car over, flagged down the nearest police officers. He was placed under arrest. All the kids were pulled out of the car, and Jordan was left there for 10 or 15 minutes before he received any medical care. He was transferred to Baylor Hospital, where he later died.
This is the story that, as it came out over the weekend, was that the car was going in reverse against the police, and then when the camera video, the body cam video came out, then it showed otherwise, that they were going away from the situation. They weren't coming towards the police at all, were they?
Right. So the video hasn't been released.
Okay.
The body cam footage hasn't been released, but the chief said he saw it for the first time on Monday. I honestly don't buy it. He saw the video for the first time the night that it happened, and he should have known what we already knew, which is the officer was never behind the car. There was no officer behind the car. In fact, the bullets came in from the front passenger window, and so the physical evidence would have refuted any claim that an officer was in harm's way. But that's a knee-jerk response from law enforcement in order to justify the undefensible. And so at some point, actually, right before the chief recanted his statements, he did meet with the family. And it was his second time meeting with the family and myself. And we expressed our discontent that he had put out a false narrative.
Sure.
And he promised to us that he would change it. And I give him kudos and praise for being brave enough to face a national stage and say, look, we made a mistake. We put out the wrong information, and there was no justification, and the actions of this officer was simply wrong. I wish he would have made a stronger statement in the sense that, and now we're issuing a warrant for his arrest because they have more than enough for probable cause to arrest this officer. There was no justification. There's no defense to lean on. If this was a normal citizen, he would have been arrested by now.
So the situation is that the police officer involved in the officer involved shooting, he's been taken off duty.
Yes, he was put on administrative leave, which is standard protocol.
Sure.
That doesn't mean he did anything wrong in the eyes of law enforcement, and there's a process when an officer's job is in peril. There's a due process afforded to all officers, and we are not asking for them to break with their standard procedures there. We want to make sure that they go through. That officer is afforded all the rights that he should have as a police officer. That has nothing to do with the criminal investigation. If they want to issue a warrant for his arrest today, based on the evidence that they have, they can do that and continue the internal affairs investigation about his job. There's 2 separate matters. And we think that police officers should be held to the same standard as regular citizens, if not a higher standard.
Sure. And when you say today is Tuesday, May 2nd, and you are looking for them to issue a warrant for this police officer who has not been identified. Nothing of that has been done in this case, has it?
No identity has been released to the media. We know from the passengers, from the brother, that it was a white male. We haven't harped on his race because we don't care what race he is necessarily. Now, we do recognize a trend in the country of white officers taking the lives of black males or being careless or reckless with the lives of black males. And we think this fits into that narrative. But the race issue aside, this was a police officer who violated department procedures, who had no justification to shoot in a car full of teens. that posed no danger to anyone, who was not even their suspects, responding to a nuisance call, a nonviolent call about kids at a party. They knew kids were present. To fire multiple rounds into a moving vehicle was just the worst possible policing ever, but it was also a crime.
Jordan Edwards was 15 years old. His older brother was driving the car, and with some other friends or family members.
Yeah, a set of twins from the football team and another friend.
They were taken to the police station and held for how long?
I got the call around 3 o'clock in the morning. They were still being held.
And this happened at 11 o'clock.
That's correct. Most of the teens had been released, but his oldest brother, the driver, had not been. He was not being held over for charges. When we got to the police station, they said that he was being kept as a witness, not a suspect, but he was handcuffed and he was not being allowed to leave. So he was being treated like a suspect when he was in fact a witness. And once we learned that he was a witness, we asked him to remove the handcuffs. We said that he would participate in the internal affairs investigation and offer an interview with the attorneys present. And Jasmine Crockett, my attorney that I work with closely, was present for that interview. She's a local attorney. I'm not a Texas attorney, at least at the state level. And so we did allow that to go forward. But it wasn't only this officer who acted wrongfully that night. It was all of the officers who responded to the situation, to failing to render immediate aid, to treating these kids like a criminal, to showing up to a nuisance call with AR-15s. The behavior of the Balch Springs Police Department was completely inappropriate given the facts.
So, and I know immediately we have to talk about the murder of this young man, but I think consequently, are we not talking about some sort of lawsuit or taking some sort of action against the entire police department, if not the officer specifically involved?
Absolutely. We believe that this is reflective of a culture, and I'm learning more about the Balch Springs Police Department. And there seems to be a history, a pattern within that department of police brutality, of racial inequality. In fact, my understanding is that they hired the first black officer a few years ago, and that officer was forced to resign after complaints of a hostile work environment based on his race. That officer went on to work for the FBI. He's an excellent officer, but for whatever reason, he couldn't exist in the Balch Springs department. And I think vestiges of that culture still exist.
Still exists. I know you said you come from out of state. Can you give us any information about how his family is?
We've met repeatedly and extensively. The family, I find them to be amazingly strong. I have young kids, and I don't know how you get over something like this. I don't know how you continue on.
Day to day.
On a day-to-day basis. And they have been able to do that, and that alone is a testimony to that family's strength in coming together. And they've had the support of their community, of the school, of the coaches that work with Jordan. But they are struggling, obviously. They haven't been able to give a public statement. They want to, but they haven't been able to give a public statement because the emotions are just too raw. This was completely unforeseen. It was completely unnecessary, and it has ripped the family apart.
This is a situation which is probably every parent's nightmare. And he was doing what we tell our kids to do. You know, if something happens, you get out of there.
Get out of there.
And so people, obviously from the Joyner Morning Show and from the world that watches Black America Web, what can we do? Is there anything proactively that we can do? Because we feel stymied here.
I think things like this keep happening because we treat officers differently. If I murder someone and I offer a bad justification that's demonstratively false, I'm going to be placed under arrest at the very least, and I will be later tried and convicted. People ask, what's the difference between Jordan dying and the kids who are dying from black on black crime in Chicago? Well, Chicago PD has no problem arresting black people who kill black people, but they hesitate to arrest officers who kill black people, and so police start to feel immune. So we're asking the community, we're asking people who do support to demand that this officer be treated like any other citizen who commits a crime, that he be arrested, that he be charged, that a conviction is obtained, that we hire the best possible prosecutors if we need to hire a special prosecutor, because we know that prosecutorial offices work with police, and they tend to be more lenient, and it's more difficult to get indictments and convictions. And it's a broken system. And so we're asking him to join us in that demand, that he be treated like the criminal that he is, and that we apply all our tax resources to this kind of prosecution, not only prosecution of Black and brown people.
Our prayers, our hearts are with the Jordan's family and with you as you pursue this. And thank you for joining us, and I hope you will come back and give us an update on the case
Sure thing.
in the murder of Jordan. Thank you for joining us here on BlackAmericaWeb.com, and stay tuned for more details on this situation.